Good morning. So yesterday we talked about single boys or girls who travel to Israel for a period of time, and the opinion of Havadia was that they need to keep 1 day if they are open-minded to staying in Israel in the long term. And I should just add, this wasn't just his opinion. There are other Sfaradi Hachamim who held this as well, including Mordechai Eliyahu and others. And so there's plenty to rely on, it seems, for Bahurei Yeshuva who travel to Israel to only to keep 1 day whilst they are there, and there is the possibility of them staying there. This is all in contradistinction to a family who travel to Israel and are unsure whether they will be able to stay there or not. So let's say a couple with a family with kids who move to Israel. They haven't yet formally made Aliyah because they are viewing the options, seeing whether it's feasible, maybe financially, maybe other reasons, whether it's feasible for them to stay in Israel. And here they are for the Chag, and they are here. They have their place in Chutz La'aretz, and they're here temporarily, and they're assessing whether they're going to enjoy it, whether it's going to be feasible for them to be able to stay in Israel or not, and based on that to make a decision whether they're going to stay. Here, Havadia was of the opinion, and this is a debate, we'll see the other opinions. Havadia was of the opinion that this is to be distinguished from the single boy or girl. Is here they need to keep 2 days because here they still have their main dirah, they still have their main abode outside of Israel. And yes, true, they've come and they are doubtful whether they're going to stay or not. It's a possibility. But since they are coming from a place where they are obligated to keep 2 days, there is that possibility they're going to go back. They still retain that status of the place which they came from because they're unsure. Their intent is unclear, and therefore they need to continue to keep 2 days. Whereas an independent boy or girl, we don't say that he has a status of being a ben chutz la'aretz because he doesn't have his own home. He's living. He's living in with his parents. He's living with a family. He hasn't got his own status, his own abode. And therefore, there we can be much more flexible and say if there is the possibility and he's open to staying in Israel, then he only has to keep 1 day. But if a family or a couple who move over who have a fixed abode outside of Israel, and then they are coming to Israel and they're unsure, then they need to keep 2 days until they've made the decision. Once they make the decision, then of course, they only need to keep 1 day. A couple of things about this. Firstly, is that it's clear from all of this that which we discussed yesterday, how Havadia says that a single boy or girl who travels to Israel only needs to keep, for studying, only needs to keep 1 day. That's if they are part of a family and they don't have their own property and they don't have their own abode outside. If you have someone who's living by themselves, have their own flat outside of Israel, and then they go to Israel to study for a few months and they are open-minded, that's not going to be sufficient for them to be able to only have to keep 1 day, because there you can still say they retain their former status because they have their own dirah, they have their own abode, they have their own residence outside, and so we maintain and continue that until they've made a firm decision. Whereas someone who is part of an extended family and is going independently and going alone to Israel, there we say he doesn't retain that status because he hasn't got that independent residence outside of Israel. So that's an important distinction to be made. I should say that there were poskim, Shem Zalman Auerbach and others, Melamed, who say that even in such a case, even in the case where a person has a doubt and they have a residence outside of Israel, say a couple or a family who've moved to Israel and are unsure whether they're going to stay or not, here, because of the Hacham Tzavi, because of that opinion, and because of the fact they're uncertain, here they can rely on the idea of only having to keep 1 day in Israel. And so therefore they are of the opinion that one only needs to keep 1 day in such a scenario when one goes to Israel, even if it's a family, even if it's a couple, and they're unsure whether they're going to stay, but there's every possibility that they will, even if they have their residence outside of Israel, but there's the open-minded and that it's possible they're going to stay, and they only need to keep 1 day. As we can see, all of these things are very difficult to decide upon because these are all very modern questions in the sense that so much travel forwards and backwards nowadays, which wasn't so common in those days. And so this is why this is a question which has really come to Poskim's attention in the last couple of hundred years or so. So it's a very grey area, and it's very difficult to give a binding ruling and based on the Talmud and based on the Rambam, based on the Shulchan Aruch. But one should know that in such a case, when a person is traveling to Israel and they are open to staying, if they are if they are single, then there's plenty to rely on to stay and only keep one day. If, however, they're coming as a family and they're uncertain, then according to Havadia, one would have to keep 2 days, whereas according to others, one could only